I'm Jason Klamm, and this is the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. All right, the year is 1973. The artist is Albert Brooks. The album is Comedy -1, and my guest is Janet Varney. Thank you for being here at your own place.
Thank you for,
every time.
Thank you for me being at my own place. Thank you for allowing me to stay here and for not evicting me.
You are permitted.
I appreciate it. No, I appreciate you covering this album because I know that it's been talked about before. Is that something? Oh God, now I'm just hosting my own podcast. But I am curious. Is that something? I mean,
we do that all the time.
Are there so many? I mean, for my generation or for people older than me.
Sure.
Are there that many?
Oh, yeah, there are.
I guess
but
there
I mean,
are.
Not
but...
what you're exposed to, though. I mean, there's this chunk because this era of comedy vinyl is the end of really, really good comedy vinyl. At some point, just became all stand-up records, which is fine. Right. But like, this is experimental shit. Like this kind of stuff. No, like there's not a lot of this.
Yeah.
You had him. You had Firesign. You had National Lampoon. A couple other people, but for the most part, nobody was trying anything different. Yeah. So, no, it's not unusual. I mean, one month we did Free to Be You and Me 3 times in the same month. Yeah. 3 people happened to pick it.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that. I mean, I guess I love the feeling of like imposing immediate pressure on myself of like, is there something else I've never heard that I could pretend was important to me and influential? Especially for someone like me who didn't listen to stand-up. I mean, I didn't even think of myself as a fan of stand-up up to and including like 2 years before I started my own comedy festival with Klamm and our other partner Dave. I just wasn't. I had seen so much. I guess I had just encountered enough bad stand-up. Yeah. That I was like, that's not for me.
Understandable. You know? Which is funny because this album's got at least bits of stand-up on it.
For sure it does, and I think it's sort of the delivery of it the same way that Steve Martin. I mean. I loved, and I have his albums. I have all his albums, and I just didn't pick one because I was like, ugh, I already talked too much about Steve Martin.
Sure.
But because I had the experience of him as a movie star, you know, all of that was like retro for me. His comedy, I had already bought in, and so I immediately loved what he was doing. And so the delivery of like the packaging of Steve Martin and the packaging of Albert Brooks were what made stand-up palatable to me.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? I don't think they like stand-up either. Like, I think this is all very meta and we're all kind of making fun of stand-up. I think that's sort of how I like talk my way into my enjoyment of that.
Well, I think that's smart though. I mean, that is the best approach. How old were you when you first heard this?
God, I don't know. My dad, was a huge Albert Brooks and Steve Martin fan, so I mean, I had an awareness of them like really young before I even knew why they were great or why I liked them. They were just around. Like when you look up to your parent who's cool and has a good sensibility, you almost think of them like, you know, your uncles before you even know. Like you're like, they're great. Why are they great? I don't know. My dad says they're great. You know. Yeah. So I honestly can't think of a time when I didn't know who they were. Yeah. I was probably 10.
Okay.
When I heard this first.
And you probably, when did you start like breaking it down though and trying to make sense of it, or was that early?
I would say in high school is when you kind of, I mean, for me anyway, and maybe why my podcast kind of lives in teenage land a little bit, is that's where I feel like I started really kind of cultivating my taste, and in high school and college is kind of where you like snob out and you sort of go, this is how I'm defining myself by this, this, and this, and I have to love it more fiercely and passionately than anyone else, and I have to turn my nose up at other things more fiercely and passionately than is necessary because I am, obsessed with my identity and kind of figuring out what things, it is kind of like I see, we joke about it, like you see people doing vision boards and stuff, and I have a certain respect for that in its own way. But this idea of vision boards and like creating this collage of, ideas or how you feel you define yourself. And I think high schools and college are really those are formative years where it's not even, for some kids, they seem like, okay, I've got it all figured out and I like this and I'm making this. But for a lot of us, and I certainly was one, it was more about like, sticking things on myself. It was like the kids in the hall are me. This is me. Talking heads are me. I'm all of these things. Well, who are you underneath that? I don't know. I'm those things. You know what I mean? So it's about taking other identities and sort of creating that vision board collage of yourself and like projecting that because that's a way. And now that's kind of what like Facebook pages and Pinterest boards are too. You go to somebody and you go, oh, I see who you are based on these things you just liked.
And it feels really reductive of your own personality to do that, but it's also really tempting to do it again.
It is.
You know, and really I don't know if that's healthy or not, but
I don't either.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's so available now because you can create these bulletins with these little clipboards for yourself online. Yeah. Which I say, but I don't do. But.
Right. Pinterest scares me. My wife does it a lot, but it scares the shit out of me just because it's another thing where I have to prove that I like a thing, the right thing. Yeah. You know, and I don't want to do that. Yeah. But it also, there's this sort of filter, and we talk about this a lot on the show, like there's this filter that you create for yourself where you intentionally just shove some shit out of the way. It's fine. I'm sure it happens.
Guys, I have dogs. That's a reality.
She's dogs. That's good. Do they appear on your podcast?
Frequently.
Okay. That's good. But you create these filters for the same reasons you were just talking about. So you're kind of limiting yourself. But I feel like at the end of the day, like eventually when you get older and you mature, there's also this attempt to, for some of us anyway, to like go outside that filter. And that, I feel like, I don't know, have you ever felt that where you just sort of realize, I'm not wording this properly, but you go outside that same filter and you're trying hard. Like you were just talking about, you're like, well, you know, is there something that I can pick that makes me, you know, sound good? You know what I mean? Like,
or just kind of, I mean, that's something that I feel like, I talk about this too on the podcast, but there's this thing that people tell you, all of these experiential things that just sound like rhetoric when you're younger. Mm-hmm. And as you kind of collect the years getting up to that point, suddenly they stop being rhetoric and they start being like, aha, okay. Yeah. And one of those too for me has definitely been, you start caring less about, you care less what someone thinks about you stepping outside of that filter.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so if you're known as being a person who's like heavy into hip hop, mm-hmm. and then all of a sudden you're like, you know who I love actually is Adele, or mm-hmm. I'm getting into old erasure or whatever, that there's a point in your life in which you feel like maybe you need to hide that or you have to apologize for it in some way. Yeah. And some people aren't like that. Some people are loud and proud about whatever, whenever. But mm-hmm. As you get older, you're like, you know what? Actually, I really like this thing, and I just don't care if you think that's lame anymore or not. Yeah. And so I think that's a flip side of it too, is like stepping outside of it, just kind of going, oh, you mean I can surprise myself by something that I like that doesn't necessarily fall under the umbrella that I've decided defines me. Yeah.
It's comforting. It's comforting, and it's also, it opens your brain back up a little.
Yeah, because absolutely.
It's the same way that I feel like I rediscovered, like, simple shit, like reading. You know, like, honestly, like, I didn't read enough, oddly, in college, and then eventually sort of, I really liked doing this a lot, and now I feel smart again. Yeah. Nice. And it was kind of the same with comedy albums for me, which is, you know, why the podcast exists. So, so you're 10 years old when you first hear this album. What was it to you then, like, that drew
Wait, I can't have been 10. If it came out in 73.
Yeah.
Then I would have had to heard. Yeah, actually, no, because I'm not. Yeah. All right. Yeah. No. It's fine. I don't know why I was like, could I have been 10? I could have been 10, of course. Yeah. So it's the 80s, mm-hmm. And it's the late 80s, I should say. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I didn't identify as like a lover of comedy the way mm-hmm. someone like I know Cole did. I mean, I think of Cole as being a young comedy fan. Sure. And I don't know that I would have identified myself that way. Okay. You know, it's not like I loved Kids in the Hall and also all of these other things because I was a comedy fan. Mm-hmm. I loved Kids in the Hall. Sure. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Same way like anybody might like a band but isn't going to become a musician. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Did you know early on that entertainment was going to be a thing, or was that not?
Well, I definitely was like a theater kid in the sense that that's what I was most excited to do at school. But I went to public school, and it wasn't until I was in middle school that I went to like a real performing arts school. Mm-hmm. And it was still a public school. And so, you know, I talked to people who were in like community theater or taking mm-hmm. outside theater classes and stuff like that. I never did anything like that. Okay. I don't know that I had, in general, I didn't have that much extracurricular tuition happen or tutelage happening. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, I mean, again, I remember like one like acting class thing that some of my friends were a part of. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I didn't do it, but I was like, oh, they're real actors. Okay. So I loved performing, but I didn't I wasn't pursuing it the way some of my friends were in Tucson, Arizona, which is a limited amount of pursuing you could do.
Do you know what the funniest stuff to you was when you were 10 on this? Like,
yeah, I loved the Muppets. Mm-hmm. You know, Sesame Street and the Muppets. Mm-hmm. I credit Jim Henson with my sense of humor in many ways, and my dad. I definitely thought that was funny. I definitely, I started watching Saturday Night Live for sure. But I think it was like somehow I was more into the reruns than I was the current stuff, which I guess in the late 80s probably it was not. Sure, yeah. I'm trying to think of when. There's certainly a quiet period when people are like, that's not the best stuff. Mm-hmm. But I watched it when Kevin Nealon and, people like that were on, and Dana Carvey and stuff.
What about from this album? Is there anything on here that remember finding super funny when you were a kid?
Yeah. I know that I responded very quickly, like we were talking about earlier, to the idea that you were sort of deconstructing a thing that people already thought of as funny and kind of winking at it and going, this is, it's just very meta. And I think that's where comedy has gone since. And when you see deconstruction happening this far back, you're like, oh, okay, I see. Because now it feels like, I was just talking about this with someone, talking about like the difference between Jurassic World and the Avengers movies. Okay. Which is like, I think Jurassic World felt too straight ahead and too like, guys, it's a big action budget movie. Right. You know what I mean? It's for everyone. It's for families. And I think many audience members really notice the lack of kind of inside baseball that we've all gotten used to from things like the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. There's a sort of thing that's like happening in entertainment, to me, not necessarily across the board, but in a lot of places it's kind of creeping in, this idea of like, you've seen everything already, now this is post that, and now you're in on the joke. And so I'm the idea of a superhero, but I'm kind of like, what am I doing here? Or it's the idea of this part. And so self-referential stuff somehow feels new again, but then you look at something like Comedy Minus One, you're like, oh, that's a perfect core one person doing that with his album. He could have just released a live album of stand-up, and instead he's sort of like, this is an experiment in stand-up comedy. Right. It's like the him at the Troubadour is a different person than the him introducing the album and kind of going like, this is what albums are. When you hear the yodel, you should turn the record over, and creating this thing that exists in its own time, that's very time stamped in that way. Yeah. But when you listen to it, it's so meta that you're like, you almost feel like Albert knows that in 20 years it's going to be funny and weird that you turned a record over. That's how it feels to me. That he's like, isn't this thing weird, people of the future? You had to use to turn a record over. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's so much of who he was felt ahead of its time to me. And so when I listen to it, it still feels ahead of its time.
Are there any particular... I'm going to just check this really quick and make sure it's functioning properly. It is. Are there any particular tracks that... you wrote down most of the tracks.
Yeah, so... I was just going to say, like, it is not a coincidence after everything I've just said that the stand-up means the least to me. Sure. It's super funny. The national anthem, that's a very famous, funny bit. It's gorgeous. It's perfect. It's very him. It's very funny.
I think that was Cole's favorite bit on the album.
The sort of, the him being on stage at that Alamo related thing where everyone's chanting for the person he isn't. I think that's something that people have kind of come to understand about live shows, is like being the opener is never fun, or, it's a very like humbling bit of stand-up that he's giving, and I always like that more than like a cocky yelly stand-up. Sure. But the stuff that blew my mind and made me feel like, oh, this the stand-up's incidental. This is really who he is this sort of idea of I'm gonna do this. The kooky crazy calls made me laugh really hard. Just those ideas of like, here's this thing that people on radio shows do, or here's this thing that kids do, and and here's my take on it, and my take on it is like, this is a really stupid version of that.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's like, sometimes I remember when I was working on this internet series that I actually am super proud of, that I love doing, called Back on Tops with Randy and Jason Sklar. They make me laugh so hard, and when we would watch cuts of the show, or they'd show me advanced episodes or whatever, and I would laugh, a lot of what I laugh so hard at with their sense of humor and that writing is I would be laughing, but I would be like, that is so stupid! And I guess that's my version of a fart joke, kind of, is that I would say that, and then I would catch myself and be like, I mean that as a compliment, right? And they would be like, no, we know. That is so dumb. Like, this is so dumb, this joke we just made.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminds me of that, is the idea that, the fact that he's doing this character voice and calling someone and asking for something, and it's not being carried through. And like, he can almost not get through it without laughing.
Yeah.
Is so dumb.
Right.
But it's so funny.
But he also gets away with it with there's this weird dichotomy that I can't exactly place, where if you want to go, this is 73, so 20 years later, irony and sarcasm were just such the fucking rage in comedy that it just became, there was just no sincerity whatsoever. Yet I feel like this is a very sincere album despite any irony that's in it. You know?
I mean, I think that's true. And again, that kind of goes to, like, and it's the same with his films. I mean, he's not interested in coming off like he's got it all figured out and everybody else doesn't. And so even the stuff he's doing, I agree with you, like, in a weird way, for something so smug as doing that to sort of, because it is saying, like, we all know that the real version of this is also really dumb.
Right.
It still feels like he's not saying, like, and I figured out because I'm funnier than everyone else.
Right. He's still doing jokes about being, like, not a struggling comic necessarily, but a comic who doesn't always enjoy what he does.
Absolutely. And, again, it's the ironic stuff. There's a difference between doing something ironically and doing something in that kind of meta esoteric way, which is he's as interested in just the deconstruction of the concept of something as in he's not necessarily shitting on it just because he's saying, I didn't alter any of these laughs, like those sorts of things.
Right, yeah.
It's not that he's saying, like, I'm shitting on anything that's the real version of this. He's just like, what if this is like one element, like one bit removed, like one layer removed from what you're used to. Sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Did you have this on vinyl, so you had the whole script with it?
No,
okay.
I didn't.
So when did you listen to the Comedy Minus One?
I might have had a cassette tape version of the album. I think my dad probably had a cassette of the album, so you still turned the cassette over when you heard the yodel. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't vinyl. I grew up with a lot of vinyl around. My dad has an enormous record collection, but I just don't remember holding that the way I remember holding the Steve Martin albums.
Sure. Did it come with a script that you could
No,
read? No,
I for sure did. I for sure was looking at a copy of a record, like a home, like a Maxell tape that somebody had taped the album off of.
Did you do anything? I mean, did you listen to the Comedy Minus One part?
Oh,
you just listen through it on its own?
Yeah, I would just listen through it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because, I mean, Cole, as you can imagine, he's like, no, I had the script.
Oh, yeah. He was a participant.
Which is fucking
great.
No,
I just listened to it. I think what I loved about it was that I had no... there was no way for me to participate, so it was just extra weird. Yeah. It just made it so much more weird to be missing the other half. In fact, it's possible that I didn't know that was a real thing.
Sure,
I think it's likely that when I was little, I didn't know. I thought that all of that was a reference to something that's not real, because once you start going down that rabbit hole of like what's real and what's not real, I probably was like, oh, this is so brilliant because there isn't a script. Right. I mean, he was, the other album, Stars Bought, has an 8x10 that could also easily be lost. You might be right in that he's predicting, wouldn't it also be funny if that 8x10 is lost? Wouldn't it be funny if the script is not in the, because it's not like it's attached to the LP. It's real. If you listen to it with no working knowledge of there being a real script, it is so strange and totally funny. Yeah. Because there are these weird gaps that it's just all very strange.
Did you ever, since is it George Jessel that he does it with, that comes on as a special guest?
I think so.
Yeah. So did that make you curious who he was, or was there this assumption that this guy's that character? Like, I'm curious where your brain was.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I did that a lot.
I think I might have just thought like, oh, he's some legit dude.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay. Or maybe I trusted none of it. Maybe I thought all of it was completely made up.
Right.
That's probably more likely, actually.
When it comes to the actual influence of this album,
yeah.
Did you ever find yourself, like, as a comedy writer, as a performer, ever maybe directly, like, aping this, like, when you're early on or something?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. In fairness, again, Cole's somebody who was, like, excited to write comedy when he was younger. I didn't translate being, like, funny in class and liking doing shows to I'm going to write comedy, I'm going to write sketches. I don't know that. I think that was always hugely intimidating to me. I think I was such a fan of stuff like that the idea of me thinking I could ever, like, how dare I?
Right, yeah.
That's what famous funny people do, not me. So I wasn't really doing, did I do, like, skits and stuff? I guess.
Yeah.
But I wasn't... I made short films with a friend of mine, but he sort of, like, steered that. I was always the one who was, like, in the moment, what if I said this instead?
Okay.
Because it felt safer than, like, I wrote this thing and pushing it forward.
Yep.
And so I can't say that there was, like, specific writing that I was doing that I felt was influential. I will say, though, that I was thinking about this... before you came over, I was thinking about how obsessed I was right around the same time with It's Gary Shandling's show.
Okay.
And that feels like a direct line to me.
100%.
Because it is like his television show was the TV show version of exactly what this album is, which is,
really good point.
What if I had a TV show that I made constant references to about it being a TV show, but I'm also pretending I live on this set?
Yeah.
And I'm also pretending these people are my neighbors and best friends.
Yeah.
I just happen to also have a live studio audience that I look at all the time, and cameras that you see because I will walk past one and you'll catch a glimpse of the camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew that was special, and I don't think it's just because my dad was like, this is special. I feel like I knew inherently, like, oh, this is something different. And I really liked feeling I was in on something.
Yeah.
Well,
no matter what, even if there's no easily, like, again, if it's not gonna, I did a sketch that was like this, whatever, it's going to directly inform your sensibilities, whether you realize it or not. And especially when you do improv, I think today I was just listening to you on Spontanea Nation, the live one, and was it?
Yeah, that was the first Spontanea Nation live show. Yeah.
And it was friggin' hilarious, but you can hear in at least the way certain of you guys interact that you have similar sensibilities. I'm not saying that everybody listened to that album, but you can the surrealness, the surreality, that comes out, and the self-referential nature of doing improv and admitting that you're doing improv. There's still some fun in that, and it doesn't come across as as arch, which it could. You know?
And
I feel like there's definitely, because of guys like Albert Brooks and Gary Shandling, etc., like that does come out.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of ethos to the way that you perform like that, or do you just do what's funny? Like, because that's as legit as anything else.
No, I think that's a really good question. I definitely think that I, like most of my contemporaries that I enjoy performing with, I think that there are things that I kind of look up to and that I think I emulated before I knew that I was emulating, and I'll probably also things that are just very me that but I wouldn't have necessarily known were in me. But I think we all love the absurd. I think being able to shift between something that feels grounded and something that's absolutely ridiculous is very pleasing. I think that in the case of Spontanea Nation, that's like such an interesting experiment anyway, because none of us really have a lot, except for the super ego guys. I don't know many people who have a lot of experience sitting in a chair and doing improv without an audience.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's been really interesting. And then taking that and doing it on stage for the very first time was also like very intimidating in its own way. But I think that the pure silliness and enjoyment of what's happening can really carry through moments of irony or moments of, you know, maybe you're breaking this improv rule, but you don't feel like, you don't get the sense as an audience member, I hope, that you're fucking somebody by doing that,
right,
or that you're doing it in any kind of a negative way towards your fellow improvisers or towards yourself. I think if there's sort of a line of authenticity that's going through something, whether you're creating this like completely fantastic world and kind of winking at the audience like, what are we doing? Right. How did this happen? But you're also not just checking out and not participating and just being like becoming the person who's just the bridge between you and the audience, going like, I don't know what's going on with these guys. You know, you and I are in on this is stupid, right? That's not happening, you know. So it's still coming from like a place of respect. All that stuff is still coming from a place of respect. And those are I think are tenets that I don't know that I've ever identified as articulated the way I just did, but I think those are really important. And I do think that the sincerity of trying to embrace being grounded even in an absurd situation in some way, it's a hard thing to teach, I think.
Sure.
And so I really look up to people like Krakowski who, you know, so expertly educate people to get there.
Right.
But
being able to articulate something like you're doing every day into a different group of people in a slightly different way, that I don't get.
And to have patience and like see something in someone and know that it can be developed and pulled out and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's something that you see, and I think that carries over into, you know, Albert Brooks' films as well. That there's this like very soft underbelly to everything he does, and like this deeply sincere person in there, you know. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that he's written and, you know, that he's really helmed in some way that I haven't felt like, oh, there's a lot of kind of, you know, pathos and gravitas going on here, and not in this, certainly in an erotic way, of course, you know, you can draw that parallel to someone like Woody Allen or something, but I mean, I would say that Defending Your Life is the best example of something that has like such a wonderful golden heart to it, and is very funny and certainly still lambasts things. Sure. But, you know, is at its core just this like beautiful story, you know?
I mean, it's the difference between like what people like to call bitter or biting satire or irony. And I don't know that there's a term for what he does, you know, like to call something sincere irony just is wonderfully ironic, but it is exactly what's going on. Yeah. It's this love and embrace of something while at the same time, because of my love, I really understand this thing, so let me tear it apart. Yeah. Like, but in an interesting way. Like you say, deconstruction, that's not a violent thing. Yeah. You know, it's not tearing it apart in the same way. So it's a celebration of comedy in a lot of different forms. I mean, this is sketch, this is stand-up, this is whatever the hell you want to call the Comedy Minus One part, because it's its own thing. That is not either.
Interactive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that that's also a tribute to the kinds of albums where you could like play along, sing along, like pre-karaoke stuff, which is fantastic. So after this album, did you move on? Did you hear this first before? Did you hear A Star Is Bought at all? I mean, did you listen to that one?
It wasn't something that I didn't like. It's brilliant, and I definitely heard it, but I didn't own it, and I didn't. It's not like this cracked open comedy albums for me. Again, it was like I had a loyalty to whatever was right in front of me for a long time, and then I was definitely like a film junkie for sure. I was definitely a movies kid, maybe even more than television, And I definitely, I wasn't a Monty Python kid. I mean, my dad watched Monty Python. That wasn't something that I ever really attached to until much later. And still, I love them. I think they're wonderful. But I came into them at a later time, after which so many of my friends, including Dave and Cole, had like worshipped them from childhood, that you almost feel like you have a responsibility, like I said before, to stay removed, where you're like, look, I love them too. Now listen, I didn't grow up with them like you did, but I think they're great, whereas not to keep coming back to Kids in the Hall over and over again, because obviously there's some other stuff, to a lesser degree Mr. Show, which was later, But Kids in the Hall, to me, was something that I felt I possessed. Like, they came on, I was with them from the beginning, from, certainly from as soon as America could know about them. I was way into it, and I I just like clamped down on that and owned it,
right.
you know? But that, again, that's not, it doesn't mean that I was like, oh, I should find every sketch troupe that's ever been, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny in that way. Cause that is an age where you do kind of, you know, gobble up, like, so I heard one Joni Mitchell album, I had to own all of them. I heard one, you know, Talking Heads album, I had to have all of them.
Yeah.
Certainly true of, like, my goth phase, because then I had to, like, get acquainted real quick with a bunch of stuff. So it is, like, a collecting of things in that time, but
sure.
For some reason, that's, again, it's like I just wasn't, and I really wasn't watching any stand-up.
Okay, yeah.
At that point. Like, I would turn on, I don't remember if there was Comedy Central when that came. I mean, I guess I feel like Comedy Central was around pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
And if stand-up was on, I would, like, watch a second, and then I'd be like, ugh, this just seems so pushy, you know? Mm-hmm. And now I have such tremendous respect for stand-up.
For sure.
And great stand-up is, you know, just mind-blowing to me. I'm such a huge fan when it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate to, you know, walk in those circles a little bit, even though I don't do stand-up. Mm-hmm. But yeah, back then, it just seemed so... It seemed the opposite of what I was interested, which I guess was, like, scene work.
Sure.
And I did love Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Uh-huh.
I definitely thought that was a really fun show, like the British version.
Did you like something about being able to see it happen? I mean, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Is an obvious example of they're constructing a scene in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think short form is another example of you're in on it. Mm-hmm. Somehow you're in on it in a different way. I've never really thought about that before. I've never really thought about any of this before. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I knew kind of why it's Gary Shandling's show meant so much to me, but when I think, again, like, not to, I mean, I guess I could talk about Cole till the cows come home because he's one of my very best friends. I've known him forever, but I think of him as being this straight ahead kid who at the time could have probably identified, like, I just want to be in on it. Mm-hmm, and mine was so much more abstract than that.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I love The Kids in the Hall, but it wasn't that I felt like I should jump into the screen and be with them. Yeah. I just wanted to marry each and every one of them course. At a different time. My crushes changed, you know, but it wasn't like I felt that I belonged with them. Yeah. It wasn't until a lot later, all the way up until I moved down here. Finally, when I moved down here, I was like, maybe I do belong in this world. Yeah. You know, so it took a long time to associate that way. So everything was more ephemeral. My appreciation for something was more ephemeral.
Can you remember a moment when you first sort of felt like you were actually participating in that very thing?
I mean, the very first moments, it's funny because now I constantly, and I know Cole does too, certainly because of Sketchfest, but now because of just the rest of my career as a performer, as a writer, I still have moments over and over where a wave of like, oh my God, 14, 13, 12-year-old me would have lost their shit that I'm doing this thing right now. Mm-hmm. And I feel that way every time Paul emails me to see if I'm available for Spontaneation. I'm like, God, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. God, you know, I can't, what? Yeah. But, I mean, I definitely think that by the time I started doing sketch, and even though I think I was insecure as a writer, as a performer doing sketch, even in San Francisco, there just weren't that many girls doing it at all in San Francisco. I can think of 2 others. Oh boy. Really? I mean, I can think of one girl from one of the group. You know, we partnered with 5 other groups to form Sketchfest. Unless I'm mistaken, I feel like there was one girl in one group, one girl in another group, and me, and then everybody else was a boy in that sketch world. And so I do think I felt like I pretty quickly was like, oh, I'm okay at this. Like, I'm pretty good at this. Wow, this is a thing I maybe could have done for a lot longer if I had known this. Right. And so when we started bringing headliners in from out of town, and when I started kind of auditioning for stuff, I remember one of the first pilot season even, that I came to LA for, I guess I came for 1 year, and then, I mean, I came for the first pilot season I came for, I just stayed and moved to LA from there because I started working. But I remember auditioning for an improv show with Kevin McDonald, and feeling like half of me, I hope this doesn't sound so too pompous or like patty on the backy, but half of me definitely was like, holy shit, I'm auditioning with Kevin McDonald. Sure. But I guess the other part of me was like, yeah, I'm auditioning with Kevin McDonald. Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. And those two were having a conversation that were like, shut up. Why do you feel like you get to audition with Kim? I'm going, well, I'm not that bad. I mean, I'll do a good job. I won't embarrass us. You know what I mean? Like, there was that sort of conversation happening.
Yeah.
Which I guess is not dissimilar from what I just said about Spontaneous Nation. There's still stuff where, you know, like, what a tremendous gift to get to work with past heroes and then, like, present-day heroes. Like, somebody like Jimmy Pardo, who I didn't know until I came to LA. I saw him. It was one of the first live shows I went to, was his talk show that he would do at M-Bar. And we had a friend in common, and we were introduced. And then I proceeded to watch him do a show, and I was like, oh, he's the funniest person I've ever seen. I mean, for the second I moved down here, it was like Paul F. and Jimmy Pardo became, like, my heroes. My favorite famous, you know, in my mind, like, famous and, you know...
Yeah.
successful comedians, and they both felt like they were doing something that was familiar but different, and to kind of get to a place where I felt like they, you know, respected me, still feels like, how did I get so lucky?
Right.
You know, because these are people I just would have loved as a fan if I hadn't left San Francisco, if I hadn't started Sketchfest, whatever. Eventually I would have come into understanding and knowing and appreciating who some of these people are, and boy, I will never, ever take for granted that I get to, you know, interact with them and work with them. That's, like, the best part of my job.
Right.
Is getting to be around people that you think are better than you are.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect parallel, too, with Comedy -1, too. I mean, you're talking about this whole idea of, holy shit, I get to do this. And of course I get to do this. There's, like, this, he's working with a man who I have to assume George Jessel had to have been a hero of his.
Yeah.
There's two things going on here. Celebrating George Jessel, celebrating comedy, and then wasting the time that he has with George Jessel by doing this stupid bit.
Right.
The stupid 10 to 15 minute bit.
Yeah.
But it was a really long bit. So there's this great thing where you get to, you know what, I'm here, I can waste my time with this and enjoy it. But if I'm going to waste my time and do it in the most creative way possible, there's this, again, it's super meta. But I mean, it's the way, that self-awareness that a lot of comedians have, where they're like, I need to feel confident that I need to feel like I'm allowed to do this, and also I really need to enjoy this, or I'm going to fucking get cynical real quick. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And this album, like, kind of embodies that.
You're right. I mean, that's a really good point, and I guess I hadn't thought about that, because when I revisited the album, I didn't go get all the way to Comedy -1.
Sure.
So I'm, like, remembering the last time I listened to it, but it's definitely true that once you're willing to strip away and show yourself as a nerd for someone else, you're automatically, and having Comedy -1 being like, and also you guys deserve to participate in this as much as I deserve to participate in this with George.
Yeah.
That there is this sort of, like, welcoming in, and I guess that's what my podcast is about too. Is like, I'm not interested in creating this front of, like, I live in this bubble that you will never have access to because I'm on television.
Sure.
I feel the opposite of that. I feel like that's a terrible way for people to think of someone, and that the only thing that feels like right to me is to just constantly remind people, like, no, they're people.
Yeah,
they're all people. I know I can't prove to you that that I know 13-year-old girl that I can't prove to you that the model on the cover of this magazine has been photoshopped and she's a person and she's and you could sort of hear that, and you can be told that, and it doesn't, I don't know if it sinks in, but I think if you're just listening to two people talk about the realities of feeling insecure and all of that kind of stuff on a regular basis, like, I would prefer have that rather than have, like, well, no one, you know, at the time no one knew that Marilyn Monroe, blah, 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 or whatever, you know what I mean? Just, like, the pressure to feel like, God forbid, you know, you go to the grocery store without your makeup and stuff like that. I just don't have any time for it all.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's more, and I'm not normally going to bring this up just because you're a woman, but I think that is much more powerful for a woman to be able to say in Hollywood, like, it's okay for any dude to be a schlub. Yeah. And to admit that you're not even a schlub, but, no, I don't wear makeup, you know what I mean? Like, that's way more powerful than I think people are going to appreciate, especially if you're talking, if you're directing it to people who are just oozing insecurity, you know? Yeah. And, like, that's the kind of thing I feel like the podcasts are being able, I mean, I'm doing nothing. I mean, I'm just doing the stupid thing where I talk to people about their favorite comedy, and that's
not
great.
Dumb.
No,
that's
it's great, but
influential.
no, and it's great. I'm not trying to undersell, like, I I love doing this. But I do think it's nice that there are podcasts that actually have like a social aspect to it, whether that's directly stated or not.
Well, you wouldn't want everything to be just that one thing. Like, I wouldn't want every podcast to be like mine, or I'd be like, ugh, of course not. Let's turn off Oprah for a second, everybody. Nor would I, want everything to be a movie review show. And I'm glad that the people that are doing what they're doing create those opportunities to listen all across the board.
Yeah, and I also respect that there are some podcasts where I have turned off where I finally realized, this person's gotten a little too famous to be doing this anymore, and I'll turn it off completely because I do like it when people will, even if they're doing, it's okay. You want to know if somebody's doing well. Yeah. That's great, but you want to still be a fan of them and want them to do well still. Yeah, it's really rough. Like it's a fine freaking line to walk. You know what I mean?
I do.
So let's. All right, is there any track or anything we haven't talked about on the album that you might want to talk about?
I'm just looking to see kind of what else we haven't really covered. It's not like it's the longest album in the world.
Sure, no, I mean it's the longest part of it is comedy -1, and it's just, and it is. That's the other thing. The weird thing too is if you are listening to it without the script, it's one joke, it's one note, but like you want to keep listening.
Yeah,
because I think the first time I heard it, I might not have known about the script aspect. Then Cole eventually messaged me like, "Here's a picture of all the whole script, so you can read along with it. Thank you, because I couldn't find it online.
Yeah,
you can't find it online anywhere anymore. But yeah, it is this one note joke sort of, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just kind of goes to, I don't know, like even I was thinking about the because there's this little man on the street portion, which is obviously not a real thing, but before you know what a real thing is versus not a real thing, you sort of are like, no, wait, is this a person? Why would he, And I like the gentleness of that too. I mean, I think there's that, speaking of like drawing that line, the line for me of, I mean, The Daily Show very early on like crossed it for me, and I loved it as a show, and it was brilliant. But like I would get to a place very quickly where, and the same with like Borat, and I would just be like, oh, now I'm really uncomfortable. And people's thresholds for that is wildly different, and mine's not right, and someone else's isn't wrong.
Right.
But when I hit the point of like, okay, now this is really about humiliating this other person, whether they kind of deserve it or maybe they don't deserve it, and it seems so innocent because you're not really doing anything. That I have trouble with that. I am like a really empathetic person, and it's a weird line to walk in comedy. And I would never try to stop someone else from doing it, I don't think. But but that's an example of something with him. It's like it's so gentle, It's like even if it were real, I remember doing Man on the Street stuff where, if it somehow turns back on you in some way, then that feels like whatever the other person went through, you don't come out looking like a genius either. You're sort of willing to poke fun at yourself, or I mean, like the extent, like Paul and I, when I was on Dinner and a Movie, we did this one Man on the Street thing in San Francisco or at the farmers market, and yes, it was absolutely like exploiting how much people love being on camera no matter what. But the joke for us was like we were asking people what their favorite episode of Dinner and a Movie was, or we would talk to them about it, and it was so clear they had no idea what we were. Well, that's just as embarrassing for us as it is for them. You know what I mean? And so that's where like the give and take for me feels comfortable, and I think that's like something that's inherent to Albert Brooks, which is like, I may be able to make fun of this, but like we all know I'm an idiot too, right? Good, okay, we got that, great,
Right, yeah. That's that whole leveling of the playing field that doesn't have to be done, but is not like, 'cause that's something that Steve Martin doesn't do as actively. He definitely does like, I'm a fucking idiot, so enjoy.
Right,
but
he's
Albert
not
Brooks
as inclusive.
Right.
He's not, he's always been more. I think for with him, there was always, to me, a sense that he knew he was special, for better or for worse. Yeah. And he was, and he is,
absolutely.
But yeah, I think there's there's more removal than I felt from someone like Albert
I could
Brooks.
see that. Yeah. All right, so if you're going to recommend this album to somebody who hasn't ever heard it before, and if you can condense that, like maybe you don't know who Albert Brooks is, or you know who Albert Brooks is, but you don't know that he has two really heavily influential experimental comedy albums.
Yeah.
Why listen to this one?
I mean, I would say you get a really strong sense of everything we talked about, where the deconstruction of the thing he wants to do, it's like he's doing the thing he wants to do, which is to be a stand-up comedian and have a live show and have a live set and release part of his live set, but he also wants to sort of explore what that even means and why that would be a thing with you. And that it is, you do feel very engaged, and just listening to an album that's a live stand-up show is great, but like, it's very genius how he draws you in at the beginning, and it is just you and him, and he's telling you, his friend, the listener, you know, what's about to happen, and that there's something about that just like, it pulls you in from the beginning, and because there are so many different elements and levels to this album, it gives you a really good picture of like where all of this kind of self-referential meta stuff comes from. Yeah. That is so pervasive now.
For a second, it was making me think, well, that's not unlike, let's say, like if we watch a concert film where Eddie Murphy's in the back or backstage, and I'm like, no, actually, it's the exact opposite, because that's meant to. You're supposed to be totally removed from Eddie Murphy and fucking worshiping him from the second you see him backstage, even in his goofy ass leather suit. Like, for a second, I'm like, that's the same thing. No, it's the exact opposite. It's like, you're here. I know I'm the one going out on stage, but like, this is our thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how this would have translated, not necessarily this, but this style would have translated to a TV special had they been a thing around 73, you know, like...
That's a good question.
Because obviously he didn't need to. He moved on to movies. That's fine.
Right.
He moved on to and mastered filmmaking. But yeah, it's just a thought. That's all.
No, I think that's a really good question, because it's kind of it's a really quick little jump to think about these other bits happening. It's very easy to picture him with this fake person on the street. You know, it's very easy to picture him walking into a store, you know, as if he's just with a hidden camera or whatever.
Right.
But then that's that's like a whole separate episode of a conversation, which is he doing something that sort of predates podcasts and is more talk radio, in the sense that there's an intimacy in not seeing him do those things, and in fact just having him in your ears.
Yeah.
That I think is one of the reasons that people still respond so strongly to podcasts, you know, to go quote unquote backwards, where you are just listening to a voice opposed to watching them and listening to them. That there's something that happens there that is, that creates a relationship to what you're listening to that's different and more intimate than, it's like the bridge between watching TV and reading a book almost.
Yeah. That's perfect. Okay, so what do you have to promote? Where can people find you, et cetera, et cetera?
I will always promote my JV Club podcast, which is available anywhere you can get podcasts, and it's on the Nerdist Network. That's a big one. On my website, you'll see, like, I do a lot of convention appearances for this show. I used to be on Call the Legend of Korra, but it's still going strong in the kind of fandom world. And I love being on Spontanea Nation. Any Thrilling Adventure Hour stuff. We're not doing our regular show at Largo, but anything that you see pop up online for that, if I'm a part of, please support that. It's a great podcast as well. You can go back and listen to other episodes. Yeah, and then, you know, I'm shooting season 2 of You're the Worst, which I'm in some of. I was gone a lot, but it's such a funny, great show on FXX. Whatever that is. And so that'll happen, I guess, in the fall.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm on Twitter at Janet Varney. Pretty easy.
Janet Varney. Thank you for doing this.
Jason, thank you so much. It was really fun revisiting this.
It was a
Makes
lot of fun.
me even more confident that one day I will get to... Well, you know what? I did a podcast episode with Kimberly Brooks, Albert Brooks' wife.
Really?
So if you are interested, she's an incredible visual artist and a writer and an instructor. In her own right, and she's a fascinating, funny, wonderful woman. So that was a really fun episode to do.
That's awesome.
So I now am one step away.
That's so good.
Which is not the reason that I had her on. I totally know her from something completely different. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually, that's one thing that's always fascinated me too. Is I've had the opportunity to interview one or two people who are related to people who I love.
Yeah.
Like George Carlin's daughter. Kelly Carlin, who is an equal talent in her own right. Lovely woman. Like, but, you have to balance that out and not be a dick. Like, let's just talk. But she was totally willing to talk about her dad for an hour.
Yeah.
But, like, that is one of the fun things about doing shows like this, is you get this new perspective. It's like, what was it like living with one of my heroes?
Yeah.
And she was willing to talk about it.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Good crap. I was going to ask you, have you ever done, I should have asked in the full interview part, but have you ever been on a comedy album, since they're not that common?
God, that's a great question. In a weird way, I mean, I feel like my answer should be straight out no. But for some reason, I wonder if there is one that I might somehow be on in some way.
Because I randomly I will meet people who are like, oh yeah, you know what? I did a voice in the background in this one album.
Yeah, I know. I don't think so. I mean, I'm not on the Comedy Death Ray album, because I wasn't really doing anything yet when they did that.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess I must not be. It seems like a stupid thing. I'm sure I would know if I were, right? I'm sure I would know if I were.
Well,
but I don't know. It's like I've done some stuff with Casper Hauser once in a while. You know what I mean? Like I just don't know. Or like if White Noise did something and I just don't. But I don't think, certainly not anything that I had a lot to do with.
Right.
If I was lucky enough to be a part of anything, I wasn't in a huge capacity.
Sure.
You might be able to hear me laughing on someone's comedy special. I have a very loud laugh.
Well, again, thank you for doing this. Not to repeat myself.
My pleasure.
Thank you for allowing me here to record you. And
my pleasure.
Thank you guys for listening. And
Thanks,
as always,
guys.
have a good thing.
Yeah, have a good thing, guys.
Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klamm. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. Please visit stolendress.com to listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, and if you like us, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. You can find us on facebook.com/comedyonvinyl, Twitter @comedyonvinyl, and find everything else at comedyonvinyl.com.
Why listen to other podcasts that sound like this?
Today on the Pistache Cast, we're going to be talking about the pistachio's closest cousin, the mango.
When you could be listening to this.
Do you think there's ever been a moment on the show one of them accidentally reveals there's a body in his trunk? Like, he's just so enthused to talk about cars. Like, it's an amazing car. Like, I've hid 12 bodies in there.
You can take them down. You can take them down to the pier. No one will even know.
Listen to the Dan and Jay's Comedy Hour podcast every Monday at www.danandjay.com.